So here we are with part 2. Here's what we have left over right here from part 1, where we used the markers. And in this case, we used these 3 colors. And that got us this result, right? And these are actually matched up. So this is the original of what we had. Now I'm actually going to be using these guys. So remember what they look like, because I didn't make a third one, which I realized would have been a good idea. And we're going to try to match these colors a little bit. You know, they're going to be different because it's not the same exact thing, so that we have the same idea. Remember, this wasn't really a brown. This actually was just a really sort of a deep, rusty red, slightly brown, I guess. Not really. So we're going to go for that too. Now with the Rangers, I went through and I picked in my sort of this color palette, this sort of deep red and light pinks. And there's a bunch of options. So I'm going to try to figure out which ones to use. I mean, all of these are different ones, right? So it's kind of cool. We have so many things. Watermelon, I actually don't know if I've used that one yet. Poppy field, I use that a lot. Red pepper, that's a nice one. Slightly redder, oranger in this. This is probably the direction I'm going to go for the darker bottom, is this cranberry. I like cranberry a lot. Let's see. Crimson, that's a good one too. So we have a lot of options. They're only slightly different. Terracotta, I use this a lot. This one's a little too orange for what I'm doing now. It's a really nice color though. Let me put that back. I definitely know I'm not going to use that one. And coral's very nice too, but again, a little too orange for this situation. I don't know why I grabbed it. And then for the pink, I like the shell pink. This is a really light one, and this was a really light one also, so that's a pretty good match. Now I'm just trying to match so we can compare. In general, I wouldn't, I'm just going to pick for what I want to pick for. I'm just trying to pick one so that we can compare fairly well here. So we'll use that for the lightest pink. The salmon is really pretty, but this is a little bit too orange too for what we're going for. Oh, I have a remnant of I'll use this shell pink first. Obviously, well-loved shell pink. Put that one to the side just in case I run out. I doubt I will. This is probably more than enough to do. Yeah, what we're doing. And so let's see. That's a little bit... I'm probably going to go for Poppy Field because that scarlet was pretty bright red. So we'll do Poppy Field. And then we'll do this cranberry, which I think it's going to be pretty dark, but I'm going to water it down. So that's what we'll go for, to try to match these 3 colors that we had originally. So put those away, put the crimson in I'm intrigued by watermelon. That's a recent purchase. I don't believe I've even used any of it. And they are different, the labels, even if the labels look the same, the colors will be different. So many nice colors with those. I really do love the Ranger. You have to kind of search it out though. Like I have to do some deep dive digging to find all of their options. So anyhow, so we're kind of match those. That's what we used in the last video. Let's get those out of the way. Now at this stage, this is where we get messy. This is why I'll be honest. I cheat with not cheat. I'm putting these in my air quotes. Cheat with the markers because they're neater. There's less cleanup. It's neater. However, again, if you're doing a big job and a lot of coverage, you're going to wear those out. Those are, if I did an entire, which I'm going to actually try because I really like this petal. I think I'm going to make a sort of lily thing out of it. Do another 4 of these. You could probably do that with it. So, it's up to you. And obviously, there's different levels of control with it. I feel like there's more control with the markers in some ways because it's drier, but then you're kind of beholden to, I guess, the color choices you have. I don't feel like there's as many color choices. So at this stage, you can use sort of a simple palette like one of these guys. You can get these like bulky, I have like 30 of these. And you can wash them too. If you wash them with, rubbing alcohol, they'll wash them off. I just like to start fresh sometimes, so I just have a few around. But I'll use them for more than one thing. I'm just, obviously for this, I'm going to start fresh and clean for you guys. But, get little plastic palettes. So those are good. Also, these little, 1 ounce thing I was talking about last time. I always keep those around to keep my gel in too. My alcohol gel. I'm going to need a little more. A few squirts for that. So keep that to the side, always ready to kind of help with repairs or diluting things. And you can use their blender thing too, this alcohol blending solution, which again is You can use it to lighten, blend, and remove alcohol inks. And it's you can use rubbing alcohol for that too, but this has a little bit more in it that makes it slightly... I find it is a little better than just plain rubbing alcohol. Okay, I think the Pinata one, though, is pretty much plain rubbing alcohol, so don't even bother with that one. Unless, I mean, I might be wrong. They don't have their ingredients. The other one does. Okay, so you can use this little thing, and I'll sit them down on maybe a little paper plate. This is probably where you want to bring gloves in. I'm not going to. I'm saying, honestly, you probably should. Until you're comfortable with it, because it will stain your fingers. I'm not particularly concerned about that, so it's, there it is. Okay, so let's give her a try. Now, I'll be honest, prefer these guys, because I like this middle well here to kind of like dot things and blob and possibly mix and have that little freedom there. So I tend to use the round ones more often. And I'm going to put that aside for now. We'll just use this. So we're going to dye these guys. Same idea. So I'm going to put a little bit of oh my God, I have to open it in my mouth. I haven't used this one in a while. Probably should shake them first. I don't even know. So I'm going to blop some in there, get a little full up there. These do evaporate fast though. That's the other thing. So, and give yourself some space. Uh-oh, this one's not opening. The poppy field. Wow, this is old. Like I said, no script, bear with me. Oh, I haven't used this one in a while. It's all messed up. So, the other thing I will do with this, too, is put the blending solution in one of the little divots here. Because that can make it, can kind of help to have it on hand. Ugh. Which one was that last one? Wow, that looks really dark. I'm going to have to lighten that one up. Interesting. This one looks really dark right now. Well, we'll be careful with it. Okay? So I'm going to put a little bit of I can't find my more full bottle. A little bit of the alcohol blending solution. Just next to one in case as needed. You might need to blend. Have this on hand, though, also right next to here. And off we go. Let's give this a try. Haven't used actual inks in a long time, so this will be fun. Keep your blotter next to you here. And let's start again like we did last time with the white sort of crystal AB matte transparent. I'm sure there's a better order to say that in. And I'm going to try to find, I'm going to use this guy again. This sort of rough and tumble one here. You can use a few. I got this set on Amazon with these white handles. These are pretty good too. Wish I could remember what. I'll look them up. Again, don't be spending $1 cajillion on your brushes because you're going to beat the heck out of them. So be careful. You can kind of see that this one's already been used by the way the top is, because there's a lot of dabbing on here and other places. So let's start with this one and be real gentle. This is going to be interesting. Seriously, have not done this in a while. Whew. Okay, just kidding. Now again, the goal here is, experimentation, and you gotta be real careful, because these really, it's way more liquid than you'll ever get in the markers. So you just need the slightest bit. Right, we're just touching it there. And you can even I'll go back to my blotter and use the ink out of there. Now you can see how fast that covers. Now if you do it it's all about keeping it like so dry on here, because if you don't, the stuff will, and I should show you how it works, but it's like I can't make myself make a mistake with it. But I'm going to try later. I'll show you what happens. It just sucks up into the hole in there, and it's going to look really messy. But that's okay. That kind of happens too. You can kind of flow with it. So we're doing the same process, but again, just keeping it really, really sort of as light as possible, rolling our things, going to the back side. You can see if you can pick up enough ink on your blotter. Sometimes not, just tip. It's like I probably could have used a lot less. I'm used to doing like a whole flower, so I'd put that in there. You could probably do a lot less for just a petal. But why would you be doing just a petal? Now, the cool thing about the inks is you're going to notice that you get a lot of like bang for your buck on one dip. Which you do with the markers too, but it is a little more fluid. And again, hold away from here because try not to hold up, even if you're wearing gloves, because you will, until it dries, rub the bottom. Okay, so there we go. That was looking pretty good. I'm going to dab off my excess. I think with the actual ink, sometimes you might want to work backwards, meaning doing the lighting one. It's kind of more logical. I just always started with the base for some reason, so I'm just picking up that corner. I can't believe I dumped that much out. You don't need this much, right? If you're doing a whole flower, you probably will. Then again, it's doing the same thing where you're starting right above and pulling down into it. This is almost too wet. There we go. You've really got to keep that brush really as like that. You should dab it until it looks like that. Again, rolling so we get the sides of the beads. So that's what we're trying to do, is roll the sides now. Make sure you do your undersides. Don't forget that. And then as you get to the top, and make sure you do your sides here. As you get to the top, start to feather it lighter. See how I'm doing it lighter so that it's going to go into the next color. And pull it down. Pull it down. Okay, next one. Dab that off. Dab that off. Let's go to our... Looks very orangey here. These are not going to be the colors that they look like. Sometimes I also use these wells here with the things to clean as I go. And you can just put rubbing alcohol in there too. Like I said, that works too. In fact, I should have just done that because I'm sucking up this stuff. It's not as cheap as rubbing alcohol. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit. Make sure I'm getting it dry. Dry. Just going to take a little touch right there. Okay. And then again, dabbing it. Okay, starting right above the boundary and pulling down into it. Pulling down, making that gradient. And then once I have that, then lightly pulling up. Now, before with the alcohol markers, because they get really dry, I actually used the gel to kind of pull this up. But this stuff is so liquid that you can just brush it, feather it up to the top. You don't need any extra. And then you can use that lighter one to sort of make that gradient again along the way. Pulling it up. And you can see, works pretty well, right? Don't forget, which I often do, to roll your beads. Roll your beads. You know, and you can also really kind of concentrate getting that wire, kind of having some color on it. Now, you can see, you can kind of go back over, like I said, with almost a dry brush, with a little bit of that lightest color, and kind of really feather that gradient. So now, there it is, looking good. You might want to even go a little darker. Tempting fate here, a little darker again on the bottom. So you can put a little second coat just on the very bottom of the dark stuff. I'll actually use, now this is weird, see how it dries there and has this little crusty edge? I like that little crusty edge because that's less liquid. So I'll pick up that little crusty edge at the end there, and that's a little less liquid, and it's a little easier to control. And then I'll use that to feather down here on the bottom and put a little extra dark right down at the bottom there. So that little crusty edge is kind of that sounds horrible, but you get what I'm saying. Where it's starting to dry, that's actually a nice little bit there. So to have a little more control over it. And so now, putting a little bit darker on the bottom, getting that wire colored in. That pearl wire really takes the color nicely. A little bit hard to find. You can find it on Etsy. You can find it, normally it's about, well, I mean, you can get smaller rolls, but I get the big 1/4 pound spools. If you find a price that's like around $18, even up to 23, that's a fair price for this stuff. Just so you know, like, trust me, I've bought a lot of it. It's handy. It's really good, especially, it's really nice for neutral colors. So there we go. That is a petal done with a gradient, and I'm happy with it. Cool. It's like riding a bike. It's not like riding a bike. I don't know why I'm saying that, but it kind of feels like a little bit. So I'm taking a little bit, and you can take a little bit extra of that, and then control that little edge bit that's gotten kind of congealed and thicker, and use that. That's a really handy thing. Use a little droplet here. you know, take control of the inks, right? It's like we're always talking about with the wires. Don't let it boss you around. So I'm just doing a little lighter thing and kind of checking it out, and I'm quite happy with it. So if I were to do like a whole flower, then this is definitely going to be an easier way to do it, right? Well, easier in terms of you don't have to worry if the marker runs out. So there you go. That's number one compared to, which one was it? Not that we're going to compare, because again, they're not the exact same color. I already started shaping this one. But here's one with the markers, right? Let me straighten it out again. I was like getting all, what am I going to make out of this? And I know now it's really weirdly shaped. But so there, this one here is the markers, and this one here is and they're fairly close, right? But they're pretty darn close, let's be honest. So you can get the same effect, but again, it's about the fact that the markers aren't going to last forever. And so it's nice to have these because you can then, like duplicate or replicate it later on. So there you go. Let's try the next step. Let's try the next combo, which we'll see how it goes. Now, I'm a little with these. You gotta be real careful with these color lined ones. So I'm gonna pick up just a little bit. Really want to make sure it's dry. Okay, let's do it. There we go. Just brushing the top on it. These color lined ones will suck up the ink into the bead hole, which will, see, this one's already not, I should have smoothed this petal shaping wise. There we go. Okay, little dabble do ya? Anyone remember that commercial? Okay, so and let's roll those beads. Roll them. I just misshaped this side here, so don't blame the petal. I'll shape it back when it's dry. Okay, so there we go. You've got a little bit again, picking up just the littlest bit. It's all about controlling the amount. Okay, turn it over. Let's get that wire and brush it sideways. Get it all in there. I'm gonna get a little more. Right there, I picked up a little bit more than I'd want to, actually. I didn't dab enough. I could already tell that. Let's see if I can brush some off before it starts beading up. Which, again, is not the end of the world. You're just going for a different effect. That's why, again, I'm saying, like, it's never going to replace, like, real color line beads and everything, because you're not putting the color in the inside. And there's something special about color line beads, how the glass is on the outside and the color's on the inside, and just the way that looks. I love color line beads. And you're just not going to, what we're doing is we're changing the glass on the outside. But that's a different effect. Okay. So now let's go to our next one. We're going to pick up a little bit. Actually, I should have dabbed. You should dab, and you can even kind of go in between, get a little bit off here. In between colors, it's good to sort of get some of the excess off. You don't mind, you're grading it anyway, so it doesn't matter if there's a little bit left. But okay, it picks up real fast and a lot. So dab it out. Almost dry. Like look where my brush is there. Okay, and then I'm going to start above and pulling it down into it. And then I'm going to do a roll, sideways, sideways. And then I'm going to check underneath. Sideways roll, and then start to feather it as it goes up, pulling it down. Pulling it down into the other color a little bit. Feathering it up. And there we go. Okay. Next one. Dab it out. Let me get you out of here. I know. It's a very close video. I can't pull out. But I guess it's probably better if it's close anyway. Again, I'm not set up for the big table yet. We are in transition. I like to pick up the little side bits where it's gotten a little bit concentrated, the color. Okay, starting slightly above again and pulling down. Pulling down. Doing a little sideways roll thing. Okay, and before I pull up, I'm going to check the back side, doing sideways so that I'm doing it kind of aggressively, notice, so that it actually does roll the beads. But pulling it down and pulling it down. And now this is my lightest color, so I really want to kind of keep it really light, so I'm going to have almost a dry brush as I pull it up. And these inks are, whether you think so, you might not seem it, they are definitely wetter than the markers, so you don't need to add that. Normally you don't need to add that extra alcohol to pull it up. And then there we go. And if you're like, oh, I wish the tip was slightly lighter, you can go back with your alcohol, the gel or whatever, and you can pull back, especially with these color line ones because the gloss, and you can pull the ink off. Now you have to be careful. If you do that, let me just warn you, that has varied effects. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and as well, that is. And once you kind of use the alcohol on there, it's almost like it doesn't, like you can't kind of go back and put more on there as easily. So see, right now I'm just lightening the top up by putting a little alcohol ink and pulling off some color. Now I'm going to do it with a dry brush to like kind of just smooth it. It's all about kind of keeping it smooth. Okay, there we go. Because I wanted that tip to be a lot lighter. Now on this back side, I haven't even pulled it up yet. So again, just kind of rubbing it, picking up the ink on its own and pulling it up. Now if it started to dry though, because I kind of left it on its own, the back side, it looks okay though. Then you can, like I said, go back on it with just a touch of alcohol to pull it up, help you pull it up. And also to push it back down, and it got a piece of fuzz on there. There we go. Okay. So, I don't want such a hard line. So it also helps me to go fix like a hard line between the colors. I want it to be a smooth grade. And there we go. Now with these, do not touch them until they're dry, the color line ones for sure. So where's our color line with the marker? So here's the one with the inks out of the bottle, and here's the one that, again, I started shaping it. I can't resist. Here's the one, and again, these aren't the exact same colors, right? So, you know, but just in terms of the way they affect as they show up. And so you can see a very similar effect. I think I prefer with color lined. It depends. Depends on what you're going to do. If you're going to do a whole, and what the base bead is too. Always make an extra petal or so to experiment with your specific situation. Okay, so there, it looks pretty good though. If I had to choose, I'd probably, for this one, I just like the colors better on this, the way they showed up on the ink ones, on the stopper bottle. So there we go. Let's try the next one. What time are we at? Good. Where's our next one? Is going to be the Pearl Matte Opaques. So again, I'm going to, and I'm running out of the Ranger solution, so I'm going to just use this, which is basically alcohol, which is okay. That's all I really need. Put a little alcohol in there. Okay, so I can, mostly again to clean brushes. At the end, we're going to compare our blotter cloths, and you'll see, well, I guess this one's actually faded now that I smushed it that way. I was going to say, so you can see the colors are very similar, but they're not anymore. That one just, for some reason, faded into the, into the paper towel. Sorry, doing two things at once, concentrating. I'm going to take this off for a second so that we have a little more so you can see what's going on. Okay, let's start with our dark one. Picking up just a touch. And as you're working, by the way, it's already like evaporating. That's not just me using it. It's getting more concentrated. So you might even have to use, be aware of that because the color will be darker. You might have to use a little blender, stick that in there just to like wake it up a little bit. Just to get it back to its original state. These things evaporate fast. I mean, they're basically alcohol, rubbing alcohol, so they're going to evaporate really fast. I do like this edge here where it's evaporating. I will use that. But in terms of keeping consistent, if you're doing 6 petals and you want them to be the same, just be aware if it starts to show up darker. And just put a little bit of the alcohol in it. It's okay. Okay, so we're starting on the bottom. Look, interesting how this matte opaque is just sucking it up. And it's coming out kind of an interesting, very cranberry color, which is true to the advertising. So again, just picking up just a little smidgen. Okay, and we're gonna go up, do a sideways rolls, get those rolling. Just do that little base area like we've done before. And then on the back, getting that wire too. Now, if you're using just regular, like metal, like not coated metal wire, you'll paint it, but it's going to rub right off anyway, whether you spray a fixative on it or not. I mean, sometimes it depends, so don't worry too much about your wire. But again, that's why I do like that. Now, that pearl wire, because it does pick things up. So now I'm going to feather the top a little bit, do it like a lighter coat. Just a little bit lighter, so it's not like a hard line. Just kind of blending that, just a soft sideways touch with that dark one. And I'm mostly worrying about that with this particular bead because this finish really is sucking up the ink. Okay, so dabbing that, using a little bit of this to clean. And don't worry about it being perfect, just get some of that off of there. Okay, let's go for the next guy. Here we go. What was this one? Again, I don't even remember. Oh yeah, the poppy field. Lovely color, true deep red. Okay, now starting a little bit above again and pulling back. Now the thing about this finish, it appears that like this opaque mats is that it really like, it's really like picking up the color in almost like in an extreme sense, meaning like there's no kind of subtlety like grade to it. Like it's just, that's the color and there it is. So you really want to be careful then about how you grade into them and make sure that there is a smooth transition. I don't use opaque beads very often. So, okay, so I'm going to smooth down. Again, smooth it down. So again, talking about that transition. Let's do it, smooth it down. Just doing a light touch with your really beat up brush. Now, if you don't have a beat up brush, you'll get a beat up brush if you do this long enough. But, I mean, I'll do one without a beat up brush, and you can see. So again, I'm going to just do that little boundary just nice and soft so that it's ready to make the transition with the next color. Okay, let's get some of this ink off of our brushes, off of our brush. Let's see, maybe I should try a newer brush, and let's see, am I tempting fate? Probably. So yeah, this is a 6 brush. Let's give it a try. I might regret this. Okay. Just to show you, you can still do the same effect even, oh, it's picking up so much though. Okay, I could see that there was ink in between the rows. So pulling this down, yeah, the opaque is definitely an interesting, I don't hate it. It's just not what I normally do with these. So I'm picking up just a touch. Again, flipping this over and pulling it down. Get those sides, roll those beads so you get the sides. I don't hate it. It's just so different how it looks because I kind of like the transparency that you can see through the inks. But, it works. When I first started these, I have to just put a shout out to Suzanne Stephenson because she did help me find... I had no idea what to paint glass beads with, and so she sent me in the direction of the alcohol inks, and the rest is history. And so I appreciate the fact that I had someone who had also looked at how to do this to help me out. I mean, I might have found it eventually, but it would have taken a lot longer because I was like starting to like dilute acrylic paints, and it was a mess and a half. So the alcohol inks are definitely the way to go. So anyhow, off we go. So I'm truly thankful for being sent on the path. So always kind of being mindful that you're getting spin it a little bit. You can always go back, before you spray, though. Be careful. Once you spray, it's not going to matter. They're not going to roll anymore, I'll be quite honest. So you want to be, before you spray, you want to be shaped and happy. Like this is your final reality. Because it's going to be real hard. It's not impossible, but it's going to be kind of hard to change things after you spray it. And after that point, like I said, they're not going to roll anymore. They're kind of going to be glued in place almost. Okay, so I'm pulling up. Again, I barely need anything on it because it might feel like it's dry. Like it might feel like it's dry, but it's not. Like there's like just little smidgen on there and it's actually enough. Now, it might not be if I use it all on the other side, but pull this up. Yep, it's still working. If you do it before it completely dries, you can pull it up. And if it does start to dry and you can't pull up the color anymore, then again, just put a little, but again, don't put it on here. Once you pick it up, you want to dab it until you think it's like, that's too dry. She must be crazy, right? Nope. You want to do it so it's barely noticeable. And again, you can use it to go backwards if you think that there's too much color on the top and you wanted to keep it a little bit more white. And also you can lightly feather it to complete that sort of gradation there. So that one looks pretty cool. I'm kind of happy with that. Oh, I touched it too much. See, you got to be careful. You got to be real careful. These alcohol inks are kind of unforgiving. See, I just made that little spot there. So I'm going to go back and really hope that I can pick it up. There we go. Be real careful. Now, because I was holding it close to the bottom there, I rubbed off a little bit here. So I'm going to go back, get that little crusty bit there, little congealed part. And I'm going to do the bottom again to get a deeper, stronger color after the fact. And that's fine. Just, again, I should have dabbed it. There we go. Careful touching it until you're done. Now on this side, I'm going to do a little bit again. Just because even if I hadn't touched it, I'd probably still want this to be a little bit deeper. So I'm using that slightly evaporated part because it's more concentrated color. Okay, so there you go. I'm happy with it. And once it gets dry, I've never done this before. I've never done that. But you know what? Kind of gets the job done. And I did realize that I use gloves. I'm pretty good at knowing how to hold it now, but I used to get some messy hands. And if you do get on there, you're going to have to wash with the alcohol, with rubbing alcohol. So this one, you can see it. Again, these aren't the exact same colors. So you want to be careful with opaques or anything, just be careful because you do start to notice, and you can go in with a dry brush, that there's like a little bit of where it picked up. I don't know if you can see it here, where it kind of it's kind of uneven. I don't mind that, but if you mind it, where there's like a little bit of a mottling effect on there, then go with a dry brush after, it's almost dry, and just lightly brush on it. And that'll kind of take care of it. But be careful with these. You never know what's going to happen, especially if there's like a little bit wet there. It'll pick it up and move it, and you might not want that. So make sure, it's all about sort of correction. I never said this was going to be easy per se. It doesn't have to be hard, but to do it like in a way that at least why I'm happy with it, it takes a little bit of, finessing. Okay, so there you go. I barely was touching it, by the way, just to pick up that little mottled bit on it where you can see, and you wouldn't see it in the whole flower, and that wouldn't necessarily be a bad effect, It's very Monet, kind of impressionistic. So there you go. We got that one. Now let's try our last one. My favorite bead. My favorite bead. My favorite bead. 147F. But now I'm like, oh no, they're all going to be gone. Hopefully they'll start making a ton more of these. I really love this bead, in case you hadn't gathered. Okay, so back to this one. I'm already noticing it's getting a little condensed there. So just put a little dab of alcohol in there just to get it back to, and you can, squish in there so that you're not putting so much on the dabber, but I get impatient. Okay. So now this one, very light right now. So I'm going to try to use one of the dark ones. Maybe I should have left it. Whoa, and look at that. See, so you got to be careful. I can go back in, but see, here, this is a good teaching moment because what just happened, I was being careless. And what happened was, I can see it, but I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. Some of the inks went down into the bead hole, which isn't horrible with this one. It wasn't a ton, but it has a different effect then. It's like you can kind of see the wire then. It goes down and dyes the wire. So that's why we're always trying to keep it really light. Like really, like almost dry is what I'm saying, not light. Sorry. Trying to figure that out at the same time as I'm pondering this. Okay. So it wasn't too much. That's okay, but you can see that it went into the hole. But the thing with the bottoms of the petals is you don't actually see them that much. So, you have a little bit of wiggle room on them. Okay, let me just get that one right there. Now notice that even though we had those, I used very little of this one, but otherwise I used pretty much that entire well. Now, I'm not keeping it dry enough on this one. It's almost like I'm challenging myself to have a teaching moment. So I can see in the little bead. Now that's not, again, the end of the world, but it could make the effect completely different. You want to try to avoid, that's why we keep it so dry, that if there's any extra liquid, it'll go be sucked straight into the hole in the bead, and it's a completely, again, different look. So I was being a little careless there, and that's one thing about this stuff is you can't be careless with it. So I'm using the sort of kind of crusty bits there to get that wire. Then I'm going to dab that off, and we're looking good. I'm happy with it. There's not much that this bead does that I'm not happy with. Okay, so we got that bottom, got our dark parts. I'm going to dab this off, and let's go to our middle bits here. So I'm going to roll some off of there so we save it, though I don't know what I'm going to do with it now because I put too much out. You can always put more out, so be careful. Don't put too much out in the beginning. I mean, we use the other ones, but for whatever reason, I'm not using very much of this middle color because it's just this little line. Again, starting above that boundary, pulling down, doing sideways rolls to get it to rotate, get those beads to rotate so I get all sides. And then going back to the back side, pulling up from the bottom, going across, pulling up from the bottom, pushing down, getting that grade, that to blur that boundary line. And then I have it laced, so I always use the lacing as a point of reference, right? So I'm doing it right about to the lacing line. And then I'm going to just feather it lightly past where I know I'm going to bring that pink in. Okay. So now I'm doing just kind of a lighter feathering. Barely touching it. There we go. Now, last step. Let's pick up some of that pink. Barely any left, so I should have done it like that. Now, if I only had a little bit left and I used all the stuff in the reservoir, there's all this stuff on the outside I could use with just a dab of that, so you don't have to get more out. Okay, so I'm going to make it so it's almost dry again, starting right up above and pushing down into that boundary, and then sideways squishing, getting those edges. Don't go too far up. You always want to underestimate with this stuff. So if you think you're going to blend it up, you want to stop well below that because you will have enough to blend up with. So don't think oh, I want pink all the way to the top, so I'll go up further. Stop, because you can always add more. It's very hard to take it off. And I mean, you can take it off, but it's a tough one. Let's just put it that way. Okay, so now I'm going to see if I'm going to just pull it up without any extra alcohol because it's still, these inks are pretty wet. So I'm going to pull it all the way up. doing like kind of a rubbing thing, like this motion, right? But kind of fast to feather it up. And now at the top, I want very little. Okay, so there we go. Getting those side bits. And then back here, again, feathering right on where I stopped and bringing it up. Just kind of a little bit at a time, inching it up there after I pull it up from the bottom. Getting those sides. Making sure I'm getting those sides. Pick up a little bit more, just the slight, like almost nothing, just because actually this one didn't roll. There we go. Getting those side bits and then pulling it up. Keeping the top the original color because I like that cream, so I want it to go just up to that top and then stay cream there. And then I'm going to look and say, oh, there's still a little bit of a gradient down here. Well, go back and blur over it with your basically dry brush, and that should actually take care of that. I mean, so that there's not as hard of a line between them. Yep, took care of it. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to double check where I was holding it that I didn't squish up on the bottom. If you want to get it a little bit darker, you can take that. Again, you can take the parts that are already evaporating. That'll be darker, more concentrated color. And just dab a little bit right at the bottom there. That's almost too crusty to even pick up, so I might need to... That's why we keep these reservoirs. I keep these little reservoirs of extra alcohol. And again, rubbing alcohol is fine there. It's probably cheaper and gets the job done for what we need for this. But that way I can loosen up the color if it starts to dry too, or evaporate too much. And there we go. So, I'm going to notice again, that's bugging me a little bit. So I'm going to take a tinsy bit, that the fact that it's not, that's pretty good though. I like it to be, oops, see, I got overzealous. See, and that picked up the color. Good teaching moment, picked up too much color. So I'm going to go back in and carefully lay down color where I just picked too much up. There we go. Okay, so there's this guy. I'm going to put a dab of pink right there. You can go back and sort of spot fix it along the way. There we go. To keep it extra smooth. I didn't even use my middle well area, which I often do. Just to sort of dab things. And if I'm going to... Because you can mix these, by the way. It's just that everything has to be so fast because of the evaporation situation. And also... I found that when I mixed them, if I wanted to replicate them for another flower or for more petals, if I was going to do them later, that it's really hard to get the exact same mix again. So I kind of stopped mixing them and just sort of mixed them on the flower and then, just had a good number of options. So this one is compared then with, where'd you go? This guy right here, which I already was, like I said, thinking lily with it. And you can go in and... you can combine to go back later and put a little bit of alcohol ink, where this one was. But be careful. Right now you got to lay it down. There we go. So you can combine them. They're basically the same thing, just in different formats. Okay, there we go. So that's this guy here. I'm not going to bend this one yet to look like this because it's still drying. Don't bend them until they're dry. And I mean really dry, not like what I just did, because now I can unbend this guy. So, again, slightly different colors. But with this one, you'll notice that actually it does really pick up the inks a little bit better. Just maybe the concentration is different. So there you go. There's that one. So that is the end of this guy. And next, what we're going to do, just a little teaser, is we're going to do some violets on the next one. We're also going to talk... how you can turn this into a blue hydrangea floret, and how you can do, this can turn into a nice soft pink hydrangea floret, and you can do cherry blossoms, and have them be a really pretty pink in there. And then we'll also be talking about turning these topaz, AB matte transparents into a tiger lily. or not really, maybe tiger lily, because I'm not going to do dots on it. You can though, but I don't want to with these. But put like a brown in it. And so we're going to be doing that too, shading a lily. I find those, so I made a little lily, right? So, okay, so we'll be talking about that next time. So we got a lot to do. And then, like I said, we're going to actually be turning these violets, and a separate one too, into something that looks like, say, this. That'll be fun. Okay, so that's what's coming up. But now you have the basics on how to do in general for your own projects, the pros and cons of markers versus dabber inks, and kind of how to get that gradient with both of them. Always working with a brush. Always working with a brush, whether it's markers or not. Picking that color up, and it's all about just the slightest bit on there and that feathering. And there we go. I can't wait to see what adventures y'all get up to with these. So make sure you take pictures of your projects so I can see them. And that's the end of this one. See you next time for all of this stuff. Ooh, what else? Oh, we can do those too. There's even more. Who knew? Okay, that's it for this one.